Alright guys, so this one is a little bit more of a challenge problem, and there's a couple reasons for that. If you notice in the picture here, A is on one of the axis lines. That doesn't actually make it that much harder, but it is a little weird, so I want to make sure we talked about that. And you'll also notice that all of the points are not in the same quadrant, so like point B over here is in a different quadrant than C, and A is kind of not in a quadrant, it's in between the quadrants. So again, this is what makes it a little bit weird. But actually a lot of the rules stay the same, okay? So for 90 degrees, we're going counterclockwise in this case. So instead of going around to the right, we're going to be going around to the left. So first thing, we're going 90 degrees, so we got to decide if the x and y should flip. So because it's 90 degrees, they will. So instead of 1, 0, it'll be 0, 1. Instead of 1 and then a 3, it'll be a 3 and then a 1. If you notice, I dropped the negatives off of this, okay, because we're going to be adding the signs back in later, okay? So that's the reason why I did that. So, and then our last one will be a 1 and then a 2. Okay, so again, just taking the numbers, I'm not worried about the signs. So then I have to figure out the signs. So if I am going counterclockwise, so again, I'm going around like toward the left, I'm going to take each point at a time and kind of figure out where it's going to end up. So if this is on, so point A is right here, it's on my x-axis right here. If it goes 90 degrees, it's actually going to go to the next axis around. So it's actually going to go to the y-axis right here. Alright, so if you notice on this y-axis, the x value is 0 and the y value is positive. So I'm going to make my point match that. And I'm going to go ahead and graph them as I go so I can keep track. So here is where A prime is going to be. And again, I'm going to do all of the rotations. You'll only need to do one. So then if I look at point B, if it rotates 90 degrees counterclockwise, it's going to actually end up in this quadrant right here. In this quadrant, the x values are positive and the y values are negative. Alright, so it's going to end up over here. We're going to make our signs match that, so x value is positive, y value is negative. Then I'm going to go ahead and graph that. 1, 2, 3, -1. And I do want to mention, because this one kind of spans across different axes and quadrants and all that, it is possible for my pictures to overlap, and that is okay. Alright, so then point C is right here. If it was to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise, it's going to end up in this section right here where both the x and y values are positive. Alright, so I'm going to make my signs match that, so these will both stay positive, and then I have a point at 1, 2, and that'll be C prime, sorry that's a little big, and then I'm going to connect my dots. And again, it is okay if your pictures overlap a little bit, so don't worry. And it's always good to check. If you notice, my shape is the same size and shape as my original, it's just turned, okay? I'm going to do the same thing for the other rotations, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and fill in these other quadrants, their signs, because that'll just make it easier as we move forward. So this quadrant, the x values are negative and the y values are positive. And it may be helpful, even just on a sheet of paper, to write this down so that you don't have to keep writing it out. It's completely up to you, though. And then this quadrant, the x is negative, and so is the y. Alright, so let's take a look at 180 degrees, and I'm going to change my color so we can keep track. Alright, so for 180 degrees, again, we're starting with this picture. This A is going to end up A prime right here. A double prime will be the next axis over, so it's going to end up right here. I'm going to try my best to label it. Alright, so then, I did that wrong. I'm sorry. I did it right, but I want to walk you through it a different way. My bad. So let's get our points first. A is probably the easiest one to actually see where it ends up. So that's why I went ahead and did it, but let's look at the points. So if I'm going 180 degrees, do the x and y values need to flip? Well, no, they only do that for 90 and 270, so it's still 1 and then a 0. It's going to be a 1 and then a 3, and again, I'm taking off the signs for a reason, and then 2 and a 1. Okay, so again, the numbers are in the same positions, and I've dropped the signs for now. So if A is going to move to this axis right here, the x value here is negative. So I'm going to make that negative, and that's where I get this point from it. Okay, so then B prime, I'm going to do the same thing. So B is right here. So if I go 90, and then 180 will be in this quadrant right here where x and y are both positive. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. So 1, 3, I'm going to move this label for C prime so I can see this better. But this is B double prime. Down here so we can actually see what we're doing. Alright, and then C prime is going to end up, it's in this quadrant to start, so 90 will end up in this quadrant, 180 will be right here, so the x values are negative and the y values are positive, so I'm going to make my signs match that, and then graph. So I've got a -2 and a +1, so that'll be right here. So then I can connect my dots, and again, it is good to double check to make sure if it is not the same size and shape, then I have done something wrong and I need to double check. Alright, so then our last one is going 270 degrees. So since it's 270 degrees, the x and y values need to flip. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my x and y values. And again, ignoring the signs because they really don't matter right now. So then A was right here, so 90 was on this axis, 180 is on this axis. It's going to end up on this axis right here, where x is 0 and our y value is negative. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that point. So it's going to be right here. That's going to be A. I'm going to try to do triple prime. Let's see if it'll let me. It wants to connect it for some reason. Whatever. That's triple prime right there. All right, so then B was right here originally, so this would be 90, 180, 270 will be in this quadrant right here, so the x is negative, the y is positive. So you got -3 and +1, which would be right here. So that'll be B triple prime, close enough. And then C was right here to start with, so 90 would be right here, 180, 270 would be in this quadrant where both x and y are negative. Oop. So -1, -2 will be right here, and that'll be C triple prime. All right. And again, do the best you can with the primes and all that. I know it's hard to draw on these things. Sadly, this is still easier than a lot of the other options. All right, so again, your pictures may look kind of weird because it's going across the axes and it's all on the axis and all that, so don't panic, but make sure that each one is the same size and shape. If it is not, then you know you have done something wrong, okay? So when it goes across into different quadrants and all that, take each point individually will be easier when you're trying to decide what signs you should be having. If they're all in the same quadrant, then they all will have the same signs.